Hello everyone, and welcome to Real Life Struggles. Today's video, I want to talk to you about Genesis and science going together, because I think there's a lot of people out there that think they don't. There's two reasons that you can watch this video. Number one, maybe you came from a young earth creationist background like I did, and you're struggling with how science and the Bible can fit together. Or you're not a believer and you read Genesis and you thought, well, Genesis got it wrong. There's no science in the Bible, and so I don't want to listen to the rest of it. Let's start by me telling you my story. I started out as a young earth creationist because of how I was raised. Basically, I went to church, I went to Sunday school, later I went to youth group, and I was taught that the universe and the earth were only 6,000 years old, and that they're created in 6 literal 24-hour days. And actually, I really didn't think about it for a long time, because that's just what I was raised to believe, so it must be the truth. Later, I started to kind of doubt that, the more I learned about science and other things, and I started to wonder, how would it be possible that A, God made man really smart, but everyone, got one simple thing wrong. How old is the earth and the universe? I came to a conclusion. Number one, God made the world. Number two, God said, if you look at the world, you can see me. And three, almost every single person that ever studied the universe and the earth concluded that the universe was 14 billion years old and the earth is around 4.5 billion years old. If God said to look at the world he made and we could see what he did, and people did that and they concluded the earth was old, well, then the earth must be old. The one thing that really got me started on this journey of trying to decide for myself instead of just believing what everyone told me I should believe is the idea of light. The universe that we can see is very, very big. It's so big that we can't even really comprehend it. Well, light has a finite speed. It can only travel so fast. And we have lots of stars that are hundreds or thousands, tens of thousands, millions of light years away, and we can see them. Now, how can we see them if the universe is only 6,000 years old? Because there shouldn't have been enough time within 6,000 years for all of the light that we can see to reach us. And the beginning in Genesis is very clear that God made the sun and the moon and the stars as signs and seasons. So he put them there for us to see, which meant the first human, however they came about, they were there for them to see it. I did actually look up a lot of young earth creationist ways that they've theorized that this could happen. And then I looked up their reasons to see if they're scientifically valid. And none of them really were. It would all have to be, either violations of the physical laws of the universe, or just people have actually investigated it and studied the light and concluded that it wouldn't be possible. And these were Christian and secular scientists both doing this. Well, then I started to do my own research. I watched a lot of YouTube videos, both by people who were cosmologists and astronomers, and people that had done a lot of research into ancient Hebrew. And this is what I discovered. One important thing to remember about the Bible. The Bible was written for us, for everyone that has lived, for people that are living now, and for people that will live in the future. The Bible is for everyone. However, the Bible was not written to us. It was written to people who lived a long time ago and thought a lot differently than we did, the ancient Hebrews, or ancient Middle Eastern people. And what I found is that they didn't care about how something happened as much as they cared about why it happened. And when they would tell their stories, that were passed on, that were eventually written down into Genesis, that's what they told the stories for. Why did something happen? Why did God do something? So at the time the stories were formed that became Genesis, people believed many different things. They believed that there were many different gods. They didn't believe in a God that existed outside of space and time, in a separate dimension, we can say. They believed that the gods were actually part of creation. So they came out of creation and lived within it, not living somewhere else. And so God wanted the people that he was revealing this to know that he was there before there was even any space and time, and that he created everything from outside of it, and he's the one that's responsible for everything. So that's what the story Genesis is really trying to say. It's not supposed to be a scientific textbook that we can read and say, okay, this is exactly how it happens. It's just God coming out and saying, throw away those other gods, throw away these beliefs of the universe sitting on the back of a turtle floating in water or whatever these other people believe. He's just saying, I'm the one that did everything. Point 2. English currently has 3 to 4 million words. We're currently using maybe around 170,000. Ancient Hebrew actually only had 3,000 to 4,000 words. So you had many words with multiple literal meanings. And when we look at them with our way of thinking in English of, oh, this word means this, it wasn't always the case with ancient Hebrew. One of the biggest controversies surrounding this is the Hebrew word for yam. And I've read all kinds of things from both sides about how when yam is used this way, it can only mean this one thing. To me, that's a little bit like saying, I already believe this, so I'm going to list this evidence that supports what I believe, but nothing that would not support it. Another meaning for yam can be a long time, an unspecified but finite long period of time. You can see that in many verses where it talks about like the day of the Lord. Some people believe in one, some people believe the other. Which one do I believe right now? Well, I'll let you know after we talk about the different theories. I want to cover everything that there is before I go into what I personally believe. So the young earth creationist theory is that God created everything in the universe in the span of 6 literal 24-hour days about 6,000 to 10,000 years ago. They get this age from adding up the ages of the people listed in the Bible, and they assume that there's not any significant gaps. If this person was listed as the father of this person, they assume that can only mean father. But again, Hebrew didn't have a lot of words. So when they say father, sometimes it means grandfather, but they still assume that there's maybe only 100 years gap, not thousands or millions of years. The earth was created first, then the stars and the sun. Plants came before the sun. They believe all of the fossils, the Grand Canyon, other features on the earth, including continental drift, are from a world-destroying global flood. Some believe an ice canopy covered the earth, which is the waters above day 3. Some believe the same, but it wasn't ice. It was just water. But in general, they believed that there's a big vapor canopy that was on top of earth. This fell during the global flood, and one of the most famous believers in this video is Ken Ham. As I said before, I actually have a lot of scientific problems with this viewpoint, and I don't believe it anymore. Another theory is called the gap theory. In Genesis, it says, verse 1:1, in the beginnings God created the heavens and the earth. And the next verse says, and the earth was void and without form. So they believe God created the universe and the earth billions of years ago. He put dinosaurs and all of your non-modern human-like creatures, your Neanderthals, Homo erectus, all of them, and that there's a gap in time between the verse that says in the beginning and the earth is without form. According to them, if you study the Hebrew, it actually says, and should be translated, that the earth became without form. So there was an earth with plants and animals and dinosaurs and prehistoric humanoid-like people. For some reason, perhaps the verse in the Bible where it talks about Satan rebelling and falling from heaven to the earth, he was angry and destroyed the earth, which gave us all of the fossils and the fossil record, the people that are not Homo sapiens, they were all buried. He did something that flooded the earth and destroyed everything. And that the days of Genesis aren't actually God creating the earth. They are just God recreating the earth. So he spent 6 literal days reshaping and forming the earth to make it okay for humans, and he made our modern humans, and it's continued on to today. Third theory is actually called Theistic Evolution. So they believe in the Big Bang, they believe the universe is 14 billion years old, and that the earth is 4.5 billion years old. They believe that the theory of evolution is true, but it was used by God, and through his intervention and guidance, it eventually brought us modern humans. Framework theory. Framework theory is that Genesis should not be taken as a literal story. God didn't create the world in 6 24-hour days. He took the time that's stated by science. The story of Genesis is showing what God did, not how he did it. And then the last one is called the day-age theory, which God did create the world in 6 days, but it goes back to the definition of yom. Yom can mean a long period of time in addition to being a literal day and night. And so each of the 6 days in Genesis represent long periods of time where God was shaping and creating. And so when it says that the sun, God created the sun and the moon, they were actually already there. It was God helping the atmosphere to clear up so people could see it. And, when God said that he created plants, that was the period of time where plants were growing and changing. And they still believe the 14 billion and the 3 and 4.5 billion year age Earth. They don't really believe in evolution. So you can believe in a day age, but still believe that God was the one that created man. Now let me tell you what I believe. I believe mostly in the framework hypothesis, and I believe this for a few reasons. All scientific evidence shows that the earth and the universe are really old. The Bible is clear that humanity can see God by looking at what he made. Why would God make the universe look as old as it is when it's only 6,000 years old? There are quite a few people that say God created the earth 6,000 years ago, but he put light in transit and he formed things just for us to see that show that the earth is old, even though it's not really old. And to me, that's kind of the trickster God, and I don't like that idea. God said, look at what I did. Nobody has an excuse not to believe in God because we can see what he did. But if what he did was fake, then how does it help anyone find him? Stars are incredibly far away. The closest one is 4 light years away. Most of them are millions of light years away. This means the light from the closest star took about 4 years to reach Earth, and most of them took millions. How did the light reach us if they were all created in 24-hour days and only 6,000 years ago? Genesis states the stars were created to serve as signs and seasons. That means Adam would have to be able to see starlight on the day he was created, which by a young Earth explanation was only 2 24-hour days. That wouldn't even give enough time for the closest star to reach us. No plausible young Earth creation solutions to this problem have been proposed. Everyone can be disproven with basic scientific knowledge. Last, I started to study and listen to people explain the way people thought and wrote at the time Genesis was written. People read the Bible in English with a modern day understanding. The Old Testament was written in Hebrew to people that lived a long time ago and thought differently than we did. They even wrote for different reasons. People read Genesis and think, how? They wrote stories to describe why things happened, not how it happened. My opinion is that Genesis was written so God could tell people that he was the one that created the universe, not a bunch of different gods. He's the one that created and placed life on earth. People at the time would not have understood anything as complicated as the Big Bang. So God said, he made light. So now that I've explained the different theories and why I believe in the one that I do, I just want to cover a couple quick things. Many young Earth creationist groups will all but say that you cannot be a real Christian if you're not young Earth creation. I've heard them deny it, and then I've watched other videos and I've heard them basically say it. They will say that the Christian gospel only works if you believe the earth is 6,000 years old and you believe in a global flood. This, to me, is not true at all. To put it simply, God created man, man sinned. God made and implemented a plan to redeem sinners and bring them back to him. How does the age of the universe, or the way God made everything, change anything that I just said about that? It doesn't. Science and the Bible can and do work together. How about death and sin? The young Earth creation belief is that Adam and Eve and all animals were herbivores, so they didn't kill and eat each other before the fall. No humans or animals died until after Adam sinned, according to what they preach. They try to quote verses to support it. According to them, the earth and everything in it was made perfect. And that in the end, when God makes a new heaven and a new earth, it's supposed to be a restoration of how things were in the Garden of Eden. First, the Bible never says everything was created perfect. It said it was created good. And there's a big difference between perfect and good. I used to drive a Jeep. It had electrical problems. It was rusty. It would thunk a little bit when you drove it. It was far from perfect, but I called it good. Why was it good? Because it got me where I wanted to go, and I could have fun on the weekends driving off-road. Same thing. The meaning of good in Genesis is that everything had a purpose. And when God created stuff, the things that he created fit the purpose of why he wanted to create them. Entropy, or the tendency of things to break down, was present from the moment of creation. And this is a good thing, not a bad thing. Plants break down to form compost and help more things grow. Carnivores then herds of weak, old, and sick animals, and it helps the herd to grow stronger. If herbivores never died, they'd eat all the plants and nothing would survive. If you read the Bible with an open mind, you discover that the verses relating to death and sin always refer to man and animals. Animals, they can't sin. I mean, if a cat kills a rabbit, he hasn't committed murder. It's just doing what it was designed to do. So animals cannot and do not sin, so they are unable to be cursed with death. The idea that God created a perfect earth and either did not know Adam would sin, which is impossible according to other verses about God. It talks about how he knows all and sees all, and he lives outside of time. So he would have known Adam was going to sin. Or he did know, but then changed everything after he sinned. Why would he do that either? To me, that's really far-fetched. You make everything perfect knowing that someone's going to ruin it, and then you have to quickly change everything to fit what's been ruined. Doesn't make any sense to me. The Bible is clear that God rested after the sixth day and he stopped all creation activity. So did God program in the rapid evolution necessarily to change animals into the omnivores and carnivores that many are now? A better viewpoint is that God knew Adam and Eve would sin and created a world that would continue to function after the sinning. Another thing to think about, where did the eternal life promised to Adam and Eve come from? Was it part of the creation? Were they created perfect and would live forever without any intervention? Or was it from the tree of life? Did the animals also eat from the tree in order to live forever? These are just some of the many questions to answer in order to make young earth creation work. I think people should think about all of the theories before choosing one, the one that fits the Bible and science the best. Down below, I'll leave the links to some people that I've studied, and you can study it and pick the one that you think works the best. Young earth creation, two of the biggest ones would be Ken Ham from Answers in Genesis. He's the one that's famous for the Creation Museum and also the replica of Noah's Ark. And there's also the Institute for Creation Research. As far as old earth creationists, the one that I've grown to really respect and like is a person named Hugh Ross. He started the Reasons to Believe, and he was actually an agnostic that came to the Bible through science. He studied everything that there was, and he figured out that it had to have a beginning. And he decided, well, if it had a beginning, then something or someone must have began it. And he studied all of the holy books from all the major religions, and the Bible was the only one that fit. He's actually written many books on this subject and produced a lot of videos and talks. Theistic Evolution. There's two people that I know of that have produced a lot of articles and YouTube videos on this. One of them is called BioLogos, and the other one is a YouTube channel called Inspiring Philosophy. I encourage anyone that's questioning young earth creation or wanting to know more about how the Bible and science work together to investigate with an open mind. Don't write off science because it doesn't meet your interpretation of verses of the Bible. Don't dismiss the Bible because it doesn't seem to match what science says. Interesting fact that I learned recently is that the Big Bang Theory was actually invented by a Christian, and it was written off by mainstream science because at the time they believed in a steady state universe, that the universe was unmoving, it was unchanging, and it had no beginning or no end, and it's always been there. And they didn't like the Big Bang because it put forth the idea that it had a beginning, and if you have a beginning, you have to figure out what caused the beginning. Thank you for listening. I have other videos if you'd like to see some of the other subjects I've talked about. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.